Hi there, in this video I'm going to show you on how to make your AI agent look professional, and we are going to use agent skills for this. So I've taken a use case which is related to customer clustering, and first of all I will show you on how an agent without skill looks like, and then we are going to compare it with an agent with clustering skills. So we'll also see on how to create a skill file. We are going to build a LangGraph agent for clustering without skills to start with. Then I'm going to inject clustering skills. We are going to compare the results, and you will see that the agent with skills is a more professional looking agent. It has got a more professional output and analysis. Now let me first of all give you a quick conceptual comparison for an agent without skills and with skills, and I'm going to take the use case of data analysis for customer clustering. So generally speaking, in clustering you have these 4 steps. You first select the number of clusters, then you do pre-processing, visualization, and then interpretation. So an agent without skill will maybe arbitrarily choose the number of clusters. It may skip some pre-processing steps. Visualizations will be simple scatter plots, and the interpretation could be very generic. However, an agent with skill is going to make a very professional analysis to select the number of clusters. It is all going to also apply different pre-processing methods. Visualizations will be very sophisticated and professional looking, as well as it is also going to do a very detailed analysis of interpreting the clusters. So for this use case, I'm going to take a data set which is related to retail. I'm going to use an OpenAI large language model, as well as the framework will be LangGraph and LangChain. So first of all, you have to start importing the packages, and here the important packages are scikit-learn as well as LangChain and LangGraph. We also need to set up an OpenAI key because we are going to use the OpenAI large language model. Now let us quickly look at this synthetic data set. So this data set has got the customer ID, the age of the customer, the annual income, as well as the spending score, which is a perfect data set for making some clusters. Now before we do the clustering, you can visualize this data set, and you can see that visually you can spot some 5 clusters, but let us see if the agent also comes out with the same conclusion. Now before we create the agents, you need to create some helper functions, and these helper functions are going to get some data description. It is also going to extract the code which is returned by the large language model. You also need an helper function to generate and execute the code, and all these functions now we are going to use it in the agent. Now let us create an agent without the skill, and we are going to use LangGraph for that. So like with any LangGraph agent, you need to first start by creating the state variable. So this state variable has got the query which is given by the user. It has got the data description, it has got the generated code, it has got the execution output, as well as the interpretation of these clusters. Now next step is to create all the different nodes, and let us first start by creating the node which is going to generate the code. So this node is going to send a prompt to a large language model, and this prompt will say that you are a data analysis assistant, generate a Python code to perform clustering. So the large language model is going to return a code which we can then store it in the state variable which we have defined over here. Now the next node is to execute the code. So once again we read the state variable for the code which was generated in the previous step, and then we are executing it, and once again we store the output in the state variable for the execution output. Next node is to interpret the clusters, and once again for this we will have to send the output of the execution to the large language model along with a prompt, and here we are specifying a prompt that you are a data analysis agent and interpret the clustering results, and we can send the execution output, and the large language model is going to return the interpretation of the results. Now we are all set to build the graph. So we can start by using the state graph function using the state variable, and then we can add all the different nodes. So we are adding the generate code node, we are adding the execute code node, as well as we are also adding the interpret node. Now we can also link all these nodes using edge. So we are going to start with the generate code, then we are going to go from generate code to execute code, from execute code to interpret, and from interpret to end. And if you visualize this, you will get something like this: the start, then generate code, execute code, and interpret. Now let us execute this agent, and here we are passing the query such as perform the clustering analysis, and we are also passing the description of the data. So this agent is going to execute, it is going to extract the code which is required to do the clustering, execute the code, and also do the interpretation. So let us see on how this agent has worked. So first of all, it has executed an elbow method to find the optimal number of clusters. It has determined that the optimal number of clusters is 5, which is pretty good. And then it has also given an interpretation. Now, even though this agent has worked well, the output is pretty preliminary. It is not at the professional level. So for example, here you can see all the different clusters, but there is just one method, the elbow method, which has been used to determine the number of clusters. Also, the interpretation looks very simple and very basic. Now let us see if we can have a agent which is professional looking using the clustering skill file. But first of all, let me show you on how the skill file looks like. So the skill file is basically a markdown file where you define when to use the skill, and then you define all the different steps like data processing, as well as on how to find the optimal number of clusters. So for example, here we are specifying that you should first start with the elbow method, then you should use the silhouette score, and then you have a decision rule on how to select the optimal number of clusters based on both these methods. You can also give a template of the Python code, and then you can also specify on how you should have the visualization. So here we are going to use a very professional looking visualization which has got 4 panels. And then you can also specify on how to actually interpret the clusters. And of course, you can also specify a complete code template which the agent can use. Now, once you have defined the skill file, you can first of all read the skill file. So here I'm just reading the skill file and displaying it. And then we can start using it with our agent. So here once again we are creating the state variable, but this time you have a new key here which is the skill content, which will be injected from the skill file. So our first node will be to load the skill. Next will be to generate the code based on the skill. So here we are passing the prompt to the large language model, but this time we are also injecting the skill file content. Once we have the generated code, we are going to store it once again in the state variable, and then we are going to execute it. And we are also asking the agent to do the interpretation. It means that it is going to take the results which are generated and it is going to interpret based on the specifications which are given in the skill file. So once again we can build a graph. So here we are starting with the state graph variable. We are starting with the load skill, then generate code, execute code, and interpret. And once again we can link all these nodes together. So the graph would look something like this. We start with the load skill, then generate code, execute code, and then interpret. Now let us see on how this agent functions. So first of all, you can see that the output is more professional looking. You have a panel of visualizations, and you can see that this agent has not only used the elbow curve, but it has also used the silhouette score. And you can see that it has selected the number of clusters equal to 5, and you can clearly see this over here, which was not available in the previous agent. In addition, in the output of visualization, you see the 5 clusters, but at the same time, you also see the centroids. What are the centroids of these clusters? Plus, you also have visualization which can help interpret the clusters. So, for example, you can see that the green cluster, which is the cluster number 1, has all the customers which have a very high age. So this is pretty powerful, and it also gives a very nice, a very detailed explanation of different clusters. So this is a very professional looking output compared to the agent without the skill. And you can also do a side-by-side comparison on what was the code which was generated without skill and with skill. Now let me give you some key takeaways. Now you have already seen that the agent with skill is generating a very professional looking output. But let me also tell you on why this is very important. So first of all, the skill file is reusable. You can use the same skill file for various agents which has got a need to do clustering. You can also maintain the skill file using the domain expert knowledge, which can help improve the clustering or let's say market segmentation approach. You can also split the skill file into multiple composable components. So for example, you can create a skill file which is focused just on clustering and a second skill file which is focused on visualization. So your agents are going to be much more maintainable rather than an agent which is not using the skill file. And of course, all the skill files are human readable, which makes sure that the whole process of clustering, market segmentation is quite auditable. So next time, if you are developing an agent, make your agent look professional by using a skill file. Now, let me know in the comment below what are the different types of skill you think are very important for an agent. Comment and like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me, and see you soon in the next video. Till then, keep learning. Thank you for watching. Bye.